My teacher banned phones, so I threw hers out the window. The phone on her desk lit up for the third time in 10 minutes. She glanced at it, thumbs moving, then looked back at the board like nothing had happened. Discipline isn't about convenience, she said. It's about respect. You respect my class, you respect your education, and that means no distractions. I watched her tap the screen again before setting it down. The irony wasn't subtle. It wasn't even hidden. She'd been doing this all semester, preaching focus while scrolling through her feed, texting during our group work, laughing at something on her phone while we worked on essays in silence. The hypocrisy had become background noise, something we rolled our eyes at but accepted as part of the deal. But today felt different. A kid 2 rows over, quiet, never caused trouble, had his phone buzz in his pocket. He pulled it out, barely glanced at it, and she was on him in seconds. Hand it over. He froze. I was just... Now. He gave it up without a fight. She took it to her desk, set it face down next to her own, and returned to the board. The room stayed silent. No one wanted to be next. She kept talking about thesis statements and supporting evidence, but her attention drifted. Her hand moved toward her phone. She picked it up, angled it low, and started typing. A few people exchanged looks. One girl in the front row stared straight ahead, jaw tight. Then she did something none of us expected. She opened her camera, tilted the phone under the desk, and started recording herself. Her lips moved in exaggerated expressions, some kind of reaction bit, the kind that gets a million views if the algorithm catches it right. She adjusted the angle, checked the screen, filmed again. The room went still. No one spoke. No one moved. We just watched her perform for an invisible audience while the confiscated phone sat inches away, its owner staring at his desk in disbelief. She didn't notice, or maybe she didn't care. I felt something crack inside me. Not anger exactly, but a kind of disbelief that sharpened into clarity. This wasn't just hypocrisy, it was contempt. She genuinely believed the rules didn't apply to her, that we were supposed to sit quietly and absorb her lectures on discipline, while she treated the classroom like her personal studio. She stood, tucked her phone into her pocket, and walked to the door. I need to call the office, she said. You have 5 minutes to work on your drafts, quietly. The door closed behind her. For a moment, no one moved. Then the whispers started, soft, incredulous, tinged with frustration that had been building for weeks. Someone muttered something about double standards. Someone else laughed, bitter and sharp. I looked at her desk. Her phone sat there, screen dark, next to the one she'd confiscated. I didn't plan it. I didn't think about consequences or fairness or what might happen next. I just stood, walked to the front of the room, and picked up her phone. The class went quiet again. I turned toward the window, old, the kind that cranks open halfway, and shoved it as wide as it would go. Then I threw. The phone sailed through the gap, tumbling end over end, and landed with a soft thud on the grass below. A few people gasped. Someone laughed, a shocked, disbelieving sound that spread through the room like a spark catching dry wood. I stood there, staring at the empty quad, my hand still raised. The door opened behind me. She stood in the doorway, eyes scanning the room. Her gaze landed on me first, then moved to the open window, then back to me. What did you just do? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My brain was still catching up to what my body had decided on its own. She walked toward the window, leaned out, and looked down. When she turned back, her face had shifted from confusion to something harder. Where is my phone? The room stayed silent. A few people looked at their desks. One kid in the back pretended to read his textbook. I asked you a question. Her voice rose. Where is my phone? I pointed at the window. Outside. Her mouth opened, then closed. For a second, she looked like she might actually process what I'd said, maybe even ask why. Instead, she walked to her desk, grabbed the confiscated phone, and held it up like evidence. You threw my phone out the window? Yes. Are you out of your mind? I didn't know how to answer that. Probably yes, but also no. She set the other phone down and moved toward the door. Stay here. All of you. Don't move. She left. The door slammed behind her. The silence lasted about 3 seconds. Holy shit, someone whispered. Did that actually just happen? She's going to kill you. I sat back down. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. It was adrenaline, the kind that makes everything feel sharp and distant at the same time. A girl in the front row turned around. Why would you do that? I didn't have a good answer. I don't know. You're going to get expelled. Probably. She shook her head and faced forward again. A few people started talking in low voices, replaying what they'd seen, trying to make sense of it. Someone laughed, nervous, unsure, and it died out quickly. The door opened again. She came back in, face tight, and walked straight to me. Principal's office, now. I stood. My legs felt steady, which surprised me. She followed me into the hallway, her footsteps loud and deliberate. We didn't speak. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and somewhere down the hall, a locker slammed shut. When we reached the office, she told the secretary what happened, her version at least. He threw my personal property out a second-story window. Deliberate destruction. I want him held accountable. The secretary glanced at me, then back at her. I'll let Principal Harmon know. We sat in the waiting area. She pulled out her backup phone. Of course she had a backup, and started typing furiously. I stared at the bulletin board across from me, reading the same flyer about spring fundraisers 3 times without processing a single word. Principal Harmon's door opened. He stepped out, looked at both of us, and gestured for me to come in. I followed him inside. The door closed. He sat behind his desk and folded his hands. Do you want to tell me what happened? I told him. Not defensively, not with excuses. Just the facts. She confiscated a phone. She used hers during class. She filmed a TikTok under her desk. I threw her phone out the window. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. That's quite a story. It's what happened. And you thought throwing her phone was an appropriate response? No. He raised an eyebrow. No, I didn't think at all. I just did it. He exhaled slowly. Well, at least you're honest. He called her in. She came through the door already talking. This is vandalism, destruction of property. He needs to be suspended, at minimum. I want restitution for the phone, and I want a formal apology in front of the entire class. Harmon Harmon held up a hand. I understand you're upset. Upset? He threw my phone out a window. I heard, but I'd like to understand the full context. She blinked. The context? He mentioned you were using your phone during class. Is that accurate? Her expression shifted. I was checking a message from the office. And filming a video? She went still. That's not... He's lying. Is he? Harmon looked at me. Do you have any proof of what you're claiming? I shook my head. No, but other students saw it. That's hearsay, she said quickly. He's trying to deflect blame. Harmon nodded slowly. All right, I'll need to speak with some of your classmates to get a clearer picture. In the meantime, you'll both wait outside. We went back to the waiting area. She sat on the opposite end, arms crossed, scrolling through her backup phone. I stayed still, watching the clock on the wall tick forward. 20 minutes later, Harmon called us back in. His expression was different now, less neutral, more deliberate. I've spoken with 3 students from your class, he said, looking at her. They all corroborated the same account. You confiscated a phone, then used your own device to film content during instructional time. Her face flushed. That's not... One of them showed me a video. She stopped talking. A video of you recording yourself under your desk, filmed by a student, time-stamped 20 minutes ago. The air in the room changed. I felt it before I understood it. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. It was just a quick thing. It didn't interfere with instruction. You confiscated a student's phone for the exact behavior you were engaging in. That's different. How? She didn't answer. Harmon set his hands flat on the desk. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to be placed on administrative leave while we review this incident and your classroom conduct. The district has policies about personal device use during instructional time, and those apply to staff as well as students. Her voice went quiet. You're suspending me? Pending review. Yes. She looked at me, and for a second I thought she might say something. Instead, she stood and walked out without another word. Harmon turned to me. As for you, throwing her phone was reckless, immature, and completely unacceptable. You'll serve detention for the next 2 weeks, and you'll write a formal apology, not to her, to the class, for disrupting the learning environment. I nodded. Okay. That said, he continued, I understand why you were frustrated, but next time you bring it to me. You don't take matters into your own hands. I know. Good. Now get back to class. I left the office and walked back down the hallway. The bell rang before I reached the classroom. Students poured into the hall, voices overlapping, and a few people glanced at me as I passed. By the time I got to my locker, my phone was already buzzing. Someone had posted the video. The video spread faster than I expected. By lunch, half the school had seen it. By the end of the day, it had jumped to other classes, other grade levels. Someone sent it to a group chat. Someone else posted it with a caption I didn't see until later. Rules for thee, but not for me. I didn't watch it myself until I got home. Sat on my bed, pulled it up on my phone, and pressed play. The angle was from the side, a few rows back. You could see her at her desk, phone in hand, angled low. Her thumb moved across the screen. Then she shifted, leaned back slightly, and tilted the phone toward herself. Her lips moved. She was mouthing words, rehearsing. After a few seconds, she stopped, checked the screen, and started again. The video ended. I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive, but it was clear, undeniable. I thought about Harmon's face when he'd watched it. The way his expression had gone flat, professional. The way she'd tried to explain it away and couldn't. My phone buzzed. A text from someone I barely knew. Yo, that was insane. She deserved it. I didn't reply. Another buzz. Different person. You're a legend. I turned my phone off. The next morning, she wasn't there. A substitute stood at the front of the room, reading from a binder. She introduced herself, name I didn't catch, and explained that our regular teacher was out and would return soon. No other details. No timeline. The class was quieter than usual. People exchanged glances but didn't say much. A few whispers in the back, quickly hushed. The substitute didn't enforce the phone policy at all. She noticed a couple of students checking messages and didn't even look up. By the end of the period, it felt like the whole thing had been a fever dream. At lunch, I sat with the same people I always sat with. They didn't bring it up directly, but the energy was different. One of them, a kid named Colin, leaned forward and said, So, what did your parents say? About what? The phone thing, the suspension? She got suspended, I got detention. He nodded slowly. That's actually kind of fair. Yeah. Another kid, Rachel, picked at her sandwich. Do you think she's coming back? I don't know. I heard she might get fired. Where'd you hear that? She shrugged. People are saying stuff. People always say stuff. Colin grinned. True, but this time it's actually interesting. I didn't respond. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel. Relief? Guilt? Some combination of both? The rest of the day passed in a blur. Teachers who'd heard about it didn't mention it. A few gave me looks, some approving, some not. I kept my head down, finished my work, and left as soon as the bell rang. Detention started the next day. It was held in a small room near the library, supervised by a teacher I didn't know. 5 other students sat scattered across the desks, most of them on their phones. The teacher didn't care. He sat at the front, reading a paperback, occasionally glancing up to make sure no one was talking. I pulled out my homework and tried to focus. Couldn't. My mind kept circling back to the same moment. Her phone in my hand, the window open, the split-second decision that had turned into all of this. I didn't regret it. Not exactly, but I couldn't stop thinking about it either. The days blurred together. Detention every afternoon, classes in between. The substitute stayed for the rest of the week, then into the next. Still no word on when she'd be back. The video kept circulating. I saw it referenced in comments, in side conversations, in the way people looked at me in the hallway. A few students I didn't know gave me nods of approval. One kid stopped me near my locker and said, "That was bold, man. Respect." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded and kept walking. But not everyone saw it the same way. A girl from another class cornered me after school one day. I didn't know her name, but I recognized her face. "You know she has kids, right?" she said. I stopped. "What?" "She's a single mom. She has 2 kids, and now she's not getting paid because of what you did." I stared at her. "She got herself suspended. You threw her phone out a window. She was breaking the same rule she enforces on everyone everyone else. So that makes it okay? I didn't say it was okay, but she's the one who chose to do what she did. She shook her head. You don't even care, do you? I didn't say that either. Whatever. She walked off. I stood there for a minute, replaying the conversation, trying to figure out if she had a point. Maybe she did. I didn't know. That night, I started writing the apology letters Harmon had assigned. One per day for a week. They were supposed to be reflections on my actions, an acknowledgement of the disruption I'd caused. I wrote the first one in 20 minutes. Read it over. It sounded hollow. I crumpled it up and started again. I acted impulsively and without thinking about the consequences. I disrupted the class and created an environment that wasn't conducive to learning. I understand that my actions were inappropriate, and I take full responsibility. It still sounded hollow, but it was also true. I signed it and set it aside. 2 weeks later, she was back. I saw her in the hallway before first period. She walked past me without looking, her face set in a neutral expression. She carried a coffee in one hand and a folder in the other. She looked tired. By the time I got to her class, the room was already tense. Everyone sat quietly, watching her as she set her things down and pulled up the day's agenda on the projector. She didn't acknowledge what had happened, didn't mention the video, the suspension, or the phone. She just started teaching, but something was different. Her phone stayed in her bag. She didn't check it once. When someone's phone buzzed in the middle of her lecture, she stopped, looked at the student, and said, "Please put that away." The student did. No argument, no pushback. She continued. At the end of the period, she asked me to stay behind. I waited until everyone else had filed out. She stood by her desk, arms crossed, and looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "I'm not going to pretend this didn't happen," she said, "and I'm not going to pretend I handled things perfectly." I didn't respond. "But what you did was reckless. You damaged my property and you escalated a situation that didn't need to be escalated." "I know. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it seems like you thought you were making some kind of point." "I wasn't trying to make a point. I stopped. I don't know. Frustrated." She nodded slowly. "I get that. I do. But frustration doesn't justify destruction. I'm not saying it does. Good. Because if you ever pull something like that again, it won't just be detention. You understand?" "Yes." She exhaled and looked away. I talked to Harmon. I told him I don't want restitution. The phone's fine. A little cracked, but it works. I blinked. "You're not pressing charges?" "No, I'm not interested in dragging this out, but I am interested in making sure you understand why what you did was wrong." "I do." "Then we're done here." I left the room, mind still processing the conversation. She could have pushed harder, could have demanded more, but she didn't, and somehow that made it worse. By the end of the second week, the video had mostly faded from circulation. People moved on to other things. The substitute left. Her rules tightened. No phones, no exceptions. She enforced it on herself as much as anyone else. If her phone buzzed during class, she ignored it. If someone else's went off, she confiscated it without comment and returned it at the end of the period. It was fair, strict but fair. And for the first time in weeks, the classroom felt balanced. The balance lasted exactly 3 weeks. 3 weeks of her phone staying in her bag. 3 weeks of consistent enforcement. 3 weeks of the kind of classroom order that felt almost normal. Then it started to slip. Small things at first. A glance at her watch that lingered too long. A buzz from her bag that made her pause mid-sentence. She didn't reach for it, but the hesitation was there. By the 4th week, she was checking it again. Not constantly, not like before, but enough that people noticed. A quick look during independent work time. A swipe at the screen while we transitioned between activities. She kept it on her desk now, face down, but visible. No one said anything. The class had found its rhythm, and no one wanted to be the one to break it. But the tension was building again. I felt it every time I walked into that room. The way people watched her. The way conversations dropped when she moved near the front. The unspoken question hanging in the air. How long until someone called it out? One morning, a kid named Brandon's phone went off during a quiz. Not loud, just a short vibration. She looked up immediately. "Bring it here." He hesitated. "I didn't even..." "Now." He walked it up to her desk and set it down. She took it without a word and slid it into her drawer. 20 minutes later, her own phone buzzed. She glanced at it, picked it up, scrolled for a few seconds, then set it back down. Brandon stared at her from his seat. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. The rest of the class kept their heads down. After the bell, I heard him muttering to someone in the hallway. "Unbelievable. She takes mine and then just sits there on hers like it's nothing. Did you say something?" "What's the point? She'll just say it's different." "Is it?" "No." I didn't join the conversation, but I understood it. The fairness she'd built over the past few weeks was crumbling, and everyone could feel it. The next day, she was late. We sat in the classroom for 10 minutes before she walked in, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. She set both on her desk and pulled up the agenda without apologizing for the delay. Halfway through her lecture, her phone lit up. She glanced at it, picked it up, typed something quickly, then set it back down. A girl in the front row raised her hand. "Are we allowed to check ours if it's quick?" She looked up. "No, but you just..." "I'm the teacher. It's different." The girl's hand dropped. She didn't argue, but her expression said everything. I watched the rest of the class. A few people exchanged glances. One kid shook his head slightly. Another mouthed something to the person next to him. The room felt like it was holding its breath. It got worse. By the end of the week, she was back to her old habits. Texting during independent work. Scrolling between lessons. Filming something under her desk while we worked on an assignment. Quick, furtive, like she thought no one would notice. But we all noticed. Colin leaned over during lunch and said, "She's doing it again." "I know. Are you going to say something?" "Like what?" "I don't know. Something. I already threw her phone out a window. What else am I supposed to do?" He laughed, but it was strained. "Fair point." Rachel looked up from her tray. "Someone should report her." "To who?" Colin asked. "Harmon, the district, someone." "And say what? She's on her phone too much? They already suspended her once. If they cared, they'd have done something permanent. So we just let it keep happening?" "I didn't say that." "Then what?" No one had an answer. The next Monday, it came to a head. We were halfway through the period when a kid named Anthony's phone went off. Not a buzz, a full ringtone. Loud, jarring, cutting through the middle of her sentence. She stopped talking, turned toward him. Seriously, I thought I turned it off. I don't care what you thought. Bring it here. He stood, walked it up to her desk, and set it down. She picked it up, held it for a moment, then dropped it into her drawer and slammed it shut. That's a disruption. I'm calling the office. It was an accident. It was careless. Sit down. He went back to his seat, face red. The class stayed silent. She picked up her phone and walked toward the door. I'll be right back. Work on the assignment I posted. No talking. She left. The room stayed quiet for about 10 seconds. Then someone whispered, "Is she serious? She just took his phone and then walked out with hers. She's calling the office on hers? That's insane." I stared at her desk. Her phone was gone, but her coffee was still there. Her bag hung on the back of her chair. The drawer with Anthony's phone was closed, but not locked. My pulse started to pick up. I didn't plan it. Didn't think it through. I just stood up. Colin looked at me. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer. I walked to the front of the room, my hands shaking slightly. The class watched in silence. I reached her desk, looked at the drawer, looked at the window behind it, the same window I'd thrown her phone through months ago. It was open, just a crack. I pulled the drawer open and took out Anthony's phone, set it on the desk. Then I turned and walked back to my seat. Someone exhaled. "Dude," Colin whispered. "What are you—" The door opened. She walked back in, phone in hand, still mid-conversation. She glanced at the class, then at her desk. Her eyes landed on Anthony's phone. She stopped talking, lowered her phone slightly. "Who touched my desk?" No one answered. Her gaze swept the room. I asked a question. Still nothing. She walked to the desk, picked up Anthony's phone, and held it up. "Someone opened this drawer." I felt my heartbeat in my throat. My hands were still shaking. She set the phone down and crossed her arms. "I'm going to ask one more time, who touched my desk?" The silence stretched. Then Anthony raised his hand. "Can I just have my phone back? I wasn't even using it." "That's not the point." "Then what is the point?" Her jaw tightened. "The point is that phones are a distraction, and I'm not going to tolerate, but you use yours all the time." The room went still. She stared at him. "Excuse me? You use yours during class, while you're teaching. You just walked out of here with it to call the office. That's different." "How?" "Because I'm the teacher, so the rules don't apply to you? The rules are for students. That's not fair." Her face flushed. "Life's not fair. Get used to it." Someone in the back muttered, "Wow." She turned toward the sound. "Do you have something to say?" No response. She exhaled sharply, picked up her phone again, and walked toward the door. "I'm calling Harmon. All of you, stay in your seats. Don't move. Don't talk. I'll be back in 5 minutes." The door clicked shut. The room erupted in whispers. "Is she serious? She's losing it. This is ridiculous." I sat frozen, staring at the front of the room, at her desk, at the window. Colin leaned over. "You okay?" I didn't answer. My legs moved before my brain caught up. I stood, walked to the front. The whispers stopped. Her phone was still on the desk. She'd set it down when she grabbed Anthony's. I picked it up. It was warm in my hand. The screen was locked, but I could feel the weight of it. The same weight I'd felt months ago. Someone said my name. I didn't hear who. I turned toward the window, pushed it open the rest of the way. "Don't!" Colin said. I looked at the phone, at the quad below, at the open window, and I threw it. It arced through the air, spinning once, twice, and landed with a soft thud on the grass below. The room exploded. Gasps. Laughter. Someone shouted, "Oh my God!" I stood there, staring at the empty space where the phone had been. She walked in, Harmon behind her. She looked at me, at the open window, at her empty desk. Her face went white. "Where's my phone?" Harmon stepped forward. "What happened?" She pointed at me. "He threw it. He threw my phone out the window." Harmon looked at me. "Is that true?" I nodded. "Why?" I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I did, but I couldn't find the words. She pushed past Harmon and looked out the window. Saw her phone on the grass below. Turned back to me, her face twisted with fury. "You're done. You're expelled. I'm pressing charges. You're—" "Enough," Harmon said. She spun toward him. "He destroyed my property. Again. We'll handle it, but right now I need you to step outside." "I'm not—" "Step outside now." She stared at him for a long moment, then turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her. Harmon looked at me. "My office now." I followed him out of the room, the sound of muted laughter and shocked whispers trailing behind me. Harmon's office felt smaller than I remembered. The same framed diplomas on the wall, the same motivational poster about perseverance, the same chair across from his desk where I'd sat months ago. He closed the door and gestured for me to sit. I did. He stayed standing for a moment, arms crossed, looking at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle he'd already seen before. "You want to tell me what that was about?" I kept my eyes on the desk. "I threw her phone." "I got that part. I'm asking why." "I don't know." "You don't know?" "No." He sat down, leaned back in his chair. "You're going to have to do better than that." I didn't respond. "This is the second time you've destroyed her property. The first time, you had a reason. A bad reason, but a reason. What's your reason now?" She took Anthony's phone and then walked out with hers. She called the office on her phone while his was locked in her desk. She does it all the time. She acts like the rules don't apply to her. "So you threw her phone out a window?" "Yes." "That's vandalism." "I know. You could be expelled." He exhaled slowly, rubbed his temples. "You're making this very difficult." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" I looked up at him. "I don't know." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he picked up his desk phone and pressed a button. "Send her in." A few seconds later, the door opened. She walked in, phone in hand, retrieved from the quad, I assumed, and sat in the chair next to mine without looking at me. Harmon folded his hands on the desk. "Let's talk about what happened." "He threw my phone out a window," she said immediately. "Again. He destroyed my property. Again. I want him expelled, and I want to press charges." "We'll get to that. First, I need to understand the context." "The context is that he's violent and unstable." "He threw a phone. That's not violence. It's destruction of property." "It is, but I'm trying to understand why it happened." She turned toward me, her face tight. "Because he's a brat who thinks he's above the rules." Harmon held up a hand. "I'm asking the questions." She sat back, jaw clenched. Harmon looked at me. "Why did you throw her phone?" I hesitated. "She took a student's phone for going off during class. Then she left the room to call the office on her own phone. It felt wrong. So you decided to throw hers out the window. That's not a proportional response." She leaned forward. "He's lying. He's making excuses. He's—" Harmon raised his hand again. "I'm still asking the the questions. She exhaled sharply and crossed her arms. Harmon looked at her. Is it true that you left the room with your phone to call the office? Yes, because I needed to report a disruption. And you had the student's phone locked in your desk at the time. Yes, because he disrupted the class. But you were using your phone to call the office. That's different. Is it? She stared at him. Are you seriously asking me that? I'm asking if you see how a student might perceive that as unfair. I don't care how they perceive it. I'm the teacher. They're students. The rules are different. Are they? Her face flushed. Yes. Harmon leaned back in his chair. Let me ask you something else. Have you been using your phone during class time for non-work related purposes? Not at all? Not in a way that disrupts instruction. That's not what I asked. She didn't answer. Harmon picked up his own phone and tapped the screen a few times. Then he turned it toward her. Do you recognize this? I couldn't see what was on the screen, but I saw her face change. The color drained from her cheeks. Where did you get that? It's been circulating. A student sent it to me about 20 minutes ago. It's you, filming something under your desk during class time, while students were working. She stared at the screen. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. It was just what? It was a quick video. It didn't disrupt anything. You were filming a TikTok. It wasn't during class, on school time, on school property. She closed her mouth. Her jaw tightened. Harmon set his phone down. This is a problem. He threw my phone out a window. That's the problem. That's a problem. This is also a problem. It's not the same. You're right. It's worse. Because you're the teacher. You're supposed to be modeling appropriate behavior. She looked at me, her eyes blazing. This is your fault. Harmon leaned forward. Don't blame him for your choices. He's the one who threw my phone, and you're the one who was filming TikToks during class. We're going to address both. She stood abruptly. I want him expelled. Sit down. No, I'm done. I'm calling my union rep. Sit down. She stared at him for a long moment, then slowly sat back down. Harmon rubbed his face. Here's what's going to happen. He's getting detention, a week's worth, and he's going to write you an apology letter. That's it? No, that's for him. For you, we're going to have a different conversation. What does that mean? It means I'm putting you on a formal improvement plan. You're going to meet with me weekly to discuss classroom management and appropriate use of technology. And if I see or hear about you using your phone during class for anything other than emergency or school-related purposes, we're going to have a much more serious conversation. Her face went pale. You're punishing me because he threw my phone? I'm addressing a pattern of behavior that's been brought to my attention. The video just made it impossible to ignore. This is insane. This is fair. She stood again. I'm leaving. If you walk out of this office right now, I'm suspending you pending a formal review. She froze, stared at him. Sit down, he said quietly. She sat. Harmon looked at both of us. This has gotten out of hand. Both of you have made poor choices. Both of you are going to face consequences. And both of you are going to learn from this. Understood? I nodded. She didn't respond. Understood? Harmon repeated. Fine, she said through clenched teeth. Good. He's going back to class. You're going home for the day. I'll email you the details of the improvement plan by tonight. We'll meet tomorrow morning to go over it. She stood without a word and walked out, the door clicking shut behind her. Harmon looked at me. You're lucky. I mean it. If that video hadn't surfaced, you'd be looking at suspension. Maybe worse. Do you understand why what you did was wrong? Do you regret it? I thought about it. I regret how I did it, but not that you did it. He sighed. Detention starts tomorrow, 1 week, after school, and I want that apology letter on my desk by Friday. Okay, and if you ever throw anything out a window again, I'm expelling you on the spot. I don't care what the reason is. Clear? Clear. Go back to class. I stood and walked to the door. Hey, he said. I turned. The rules do apply to everyone, even teachers, but that doesn't give you the right to take matters into your own hands. You get that, right? I get it. Good, get out of here. I walked out into the hallway. The bell was about to ring. Students were already moving between classes, voices echoing off the lockers. I saw Rachel near her locker. She looked up when I approached. You okay? Detention, a week, and an apology letter. That's it. What about her? Improvement plan. Meeting with Harmon every week. Seriously? Yeah, she grinned. That video really did it. You saw it? Everyone saw it. It's everywhere. I pulled out my phone and opened the app. The video was already at 2,000 views. Comments were pouring in. Some supportive, some angry, some just laughing. Colin appeared next to me. Dude, you're a legend. I'm in detention for a week. Still, worth it. Rachel elbowed him. Don't encourage him. I'm just saying, someone had to do something. The bell rang. We started moving toward class. Do you think she'll quit? Rachel asked. Would you want her to? I thought about it. I just want her to follow the same rules she makes us follow. Fair. We walked into the next class. Different teacher, different room. But the energy was the same. Everyone was talking about the video, about the phone, about what happened. I sat down and pulled out my notebook, tried to focus. But I kept thinking about Harmon's question. Did I regret it? I didn't know. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But for now, I just felt tired. The next morning, I walked into school expecting whispers. What I got was silence. Not the kind that meant people were avoiding me. The kind that meant they were waiting. Rachel met me at my locker. Did you see? See what? She held up her phone. The video had passed 10,000 views overnight. Comments were still coming in. Students, parents, people I didn't recognize. Someone tagged the district, she said. What? In the comments, someone tagged the school board's official account and the superintendent. My stomach dropped. When? Last night, around midnight. I scrolled through the comments. Found it. A parent account. Professional profile picture. Real name. District schools. This is what's happening in your classrooms. Teachers filming social media content while students sit there. Zero accountability. Zero professionalism. This needs to be addressed immediately. Below it, a reply from the district account. Time-stamped at 7 in the morning. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We are looking into the matter. They're looking into it, I said. Yeah, that's not good. For her? No. I closed my locker. This is going to get worse. Maybe, but she did it to herself. We walked to first period. The hallways felt different. Eyes followed me, but not with judgment. More like curiosity. Like they were trying to figure out what I'd done and whether it was brave or stupid. I didn't know either. First period was English. Different teacher. She didn't mention anything. Just started class like normal. But I could see students checking their phones under their desks. desks. The video was still spreading. At lunch, I sat with Rachel and Colin in our usual spot. The cafeteria felt louder than normal. Everyone was talking. Do you think she'll get fired? Colin asked. I don't know. My mom said she should be. She said teachers aren't supposed to use school time for personal stuff. Rachel picked at her sandwich. It's not just that. It's the double standard. She was taking phones from students while using hers for TikTok. That's the part that makes people mad. Yeah, but firing seems extreme, I said. You threw her phone out a window. I know, twice. The first time was an accident. Still, Colin leaned forward. What did Harmon say this morning? Nothing, I haven't seen him. You will. He called my mom last night, said there's going to be a meeting. A meeting? With you, and her, and probably some district people. When? I don't know, soon. I pushed my tray away, suddenly wasn't hungry. Rachel looked at me. You okay? I don't know what I'm supposed to say. The truth. The truth is I threw her phone because I was mad. That's not exactly a defense. The truth is, she was breaking the rules she forced on everyone else. That's why you were mad. It doesn't matter. I still did it. It matters, Colin said. People get it. That's why the video is everywhere. That doesn't make it right. No, but it makes it fair. The PA system crackled. Harmon's voice came through. Would the following students please report to the main office? Anthony Brennan, Rachel Yates, Colin Ford. Colin looked at me. Why us? You're witnesses, Rachel said. To what? To everything. We stood and walked to the office. The hallways were still full of students heading to class. A few looked at us as we passed. One kid nodded. Another gave me a thumbs up. I didn't respond. The office was quiet when we walked in. The secretary gestured toward the conference room. Go ahead. They're waiting. We walked in. Harmon was there. So was the assistant principal, a woman named Caldwell who usually handled discipline issues. And sitting at the far end of the table was someone I didn't recognize. A man in a suit with a district ID clipped to his pocket. Harmon gestured for us to sit. This is Mr. Voss. He's from the district office. He's here to ask you some questions about what happened yesterday. Voss nodded at us. Thanks for coming in. This won't take long. I just need to understand the sequence of events. Anthony, let's start with you. Can you walk me through what happened before the phone was confiscated? Anthony shifted in his seat. My phone went off during class. I forgot to turn it on silent. She told me to bring it to her desk. I did. She locked it in her drawer and told me I could get it back at the end of the day. Did she say why she was confiscating it? She said it disrupted the class. And after that, she kept teaching. But then her phone went off, and she answered it. She walked to the back of the room and talked for like a minute. Then she put it away and kept teaching. Voss made a note. Did she explain why she answered her phone? No. Did anyone ask? Okay, what happened next? Anthony glanced at me. She sat at her desk and started doing something on her phone. I couldn't see what, but everyone could tell she was on it. Then she got up and left the room, said she was calling the office, and she took her phone with her. Voss looked at Rachel. Did you see the same thing? Yeah. She was on her phone for a few minutes before she left, and when she walked out, she had it in her hand. Did you see what she was doing on her phone? Rachel hesitated. I saw her holding it under the desk like she was filming something. You're sure? Pretty sure. I couldn't see the screen, but she had it angled down like she was recording. Voss made another note, looked at Colin. What about you? I saw the same thing. She was definitely on her phone, and when she left, people started talking about it. Someone said she was making a TikTok. Someone else said they recorded it. Who recorded it? I don't know, but the video got posted that night. Voss nodded slowly. Okay, now let's talk about the phone being thrown. Who saw that happen? All three of them raised their hands. Walk me through it. Rachel spoke first. She left the room. Her phone was on her desk. He stood up, walked over, picked it up, and threw it out the window. Did he say anything before he did it? Did anyone try to stop him? No, it happened really fast. Voss looked at me. Why did you throw the phone? I looked at Harmon. He nodded slightly. She took Anthony's phone for going off during class. Then she used hers. Then she left the room with it while his was locked in her desk. It felt wrong. So you threw hers out the window? Yes. Did you think about asking her why she was using her phone? Did you think about reporting it to the administration? You just threw it. Voss leaned back in his chair. Do you understand that what you did was vandalism? And that it's a serious offense? Do you regret it? I thought about how to answer. I regret doing it that way, but not doing it at all. Voss studied me for a moment. Then he looked at Harmon. Can I see the video? Harmon pulled out his phone and handed it over. Voss watched it twice. His expression didn't change. This was filmed during class time, on school property, and it's been viewed how many times? Over 20,000 as of this morning. Voss set the phone down. Where is she now? At home. I sent her home yesterday pending this meeting. Good. Keep her there. I'm recommending a formal review. Misuse of school property, failure to maintain professional standards, inconsistent enforcement of classroom policies. Harmon nodded. Understood. Voss looked at me. You're getting detention. 1 week, and you're writing an apology letter. I want you to understand something. What she did was wrong, but what you did was also wrong. You don't get to destroy someone's property because you're angry. That's not how this works. Do you? He stood. Okay, you three can go back to class. I need to speak with the principal. We stood and walked out. The hallway was empty now. Classes had started. Rachel looked at me. That was intense. Do you think she'll get fired? Colin grinned. Formal review. That's basically fired. Not necessarily, it just means they're investigating. Still, she's done. We split up at the next hallway. I walked back to class alone. When I got there, the teacher barely looked up, just nodded toward my seat. I sat down and tried to focus on the lesson, but all I could think about was Voss's question. Do you regret it? I still didn't know. That afternoon, detention started. I walked into the room and found 6 other students already there. None of them were from my class. The supervising teacher handed me a packet of work and pointed to a desk in the back. I sat down and started working. The room was silent except for the scratch of pencils and the hum of the air conditioning. An hour in, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it under the desk. A text from Rachel. She's suspended. I stared at the screen. For how long? Pending review? Could be permanent. I put the phone away, tried to focus on the work. But I kept thinking about her face in Harmon's office. The way she'd looked at me when the video came up. The way she'd insisted it wasn't the same. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe what I did was worse. Or maybe it wasn't about worse or better. Maybe it was just about fair. The next day, I started writing the apology letter. Harmon said it had to be sincere, that that I had to acknowledge what I did wrong and explain how I'd do better. I sat at my desk at home and stared at the blank page. Dear Ms. Crawford, sincerely, I read it over. It felt hollow, mechanical, but it was true, so I printed it and put it in my backpack. The next morning, Rachel told me the video had been taken down. The account that posted it had been deleted. By who? I don't know, but people are saying the district made them do it. Can they do that? I guess. But it didn't matter. The video was already everywhere. Screenshots, re-uploads. People had saved it. By Friday, the letter was on Harmon's desk. He read it in front of me, then set it down. This is good, thanks. Do you mean it? He studied me. She's been suspended for 2 weeks. After that, there'll be a hearing. The board will decide if she keeps her job. What do you think will happen? I think she'll keep it, but she'll be on probation, and she'll have to follow a strict set of guidelines. So she's coming back. Probably. I didn't know how to feel about that. How do you feel about that? Harmon asked. Fair enough. He leaned back in his chair. You did something stupid, but you also exposed something that needed to be addressed. I'm not saying you were right, but I'm not saying you were completely wrong either. What does that mean? It means the world isn't black and white. It means sometimes doing the right thing looks like doing the wrong thing, and sometimes you have to face consequences even when you had a point. So what am I supposed to learn from this? That rules matter, that fairness matters, and that how you fight for fairness matters just as much as why. I nodded. Okay, your detention's done, you're free to go. I stood and walked to the door. Hey, he said. I turned. For what it's worth, I get why you did it. Does that make it okay? No, but it makes it human. I walked out into the hallway. The week felt longer than it was, but it was over. And somehow, that felt like enough. 3 weeks later, she walked back into the classroom. The room went quiet, not hostile, just watchful. She set her bag down on the desk, looked at us. Her expression was different, tired maybe, or just careful. Before we start, she said, I owe you all an apology. No one moved. What I did was unprofessional. I enforced rules I didn't follow myself. That's not fair, and it's not acceptable. I'm sorry. She pulled a printed sheet from her bag and taped it to the board. New policy. Applies to everyone, including me. No phones during instruction time unless it's an emergency. If I need to take a call, I step out and I tell you why. If you need to take a call, you ask and we figure it out. Fair both ways. Anthony raised his hand. What if it's not an emergency? Then it waits. Same as you. She looked at me, just for a second. Then she turned and started the lesson. The room felt lighter, not perfect, not erased, but different. After class, I walked out with Rachel. That was weird, she said. Yeah, but good weird. Maybe. I still felt the weight of it. The suspension, the letter, the look on her face when Harmon showed her the video. But I also felt something else. Something quieter. Relief. Not because I'd won. I hadn't. I'd thrown someone's phone out a window and faced the consequences. But something had shifted. The rules meant something now. Not because they were enforced harder, but because they were enforced equally. And maybe that's what fairness actually looked like.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop your favorite part in the comments. See you in the next one.